Hello and welcome. My name is Casey and I'm going to be doing an Iridology reading. And this reading is the second of two, and this is the right eye for Shannon. In the first video, we spoke to this chart over here as being one of my very favorites, and it provides such an amazing example of how the anatomy and physiology is laid out in the iris. That said, if you're studying iridology or if you're just interested in it, it's not going to give you the complete detail that another chart will. And my other favorite chart is the Iridology chart by Bernard Jensen. That's kind of the standard. In my opinion, that is the Bible chart in iridology to this day. But we're going to keep this chart on the screen because we introduced it in the first video, and I think it's fun to, when you're following along, take a look at the chart and see how everything is corresponding. Okay, so let's take a look at her right eye. Again, the first thing I'm going to do when I'm looking at an iris is just sit back and soften my gaze and see what is striking to me. The first thing I'm noticing in this eye is the level of inflammation. So we have a lot of white. In different areas, it's even more defined than others, but overall there is a lot of white in this eye. When you see extreme white, you know that you're in the acute phases of inflammation. And in particular, I'm seeing a lot of inflammation up in the brain area, in the head and brain. All right, and other than that, I'm looking at the color, of course, her gorgeous blue eye, and I'm looking at the fibers and the density of those fibers, how straight they are, how closely woven they are. And I'm going to say this is a good constitution, that she has a great genetic heritage. All right, so let's get started with a little bit more analysis and detail. We're going to go right into this little stomach halo, same as in the left eye. It's a bright white circle around the iris. This is the stomach area. So we have some inflammation in the stomach, and I'm looking at this bright white congested iris fiber that's coming straight out of the stomach, and that is the appendix. So the appendix, as a vital part of the lymphatic system, is helping to remove waste and toxins from the stomach and bowels, especially the large intestine. The appendix sits right at the bottom of the large intestine. So just above that is the cecum, which is the beginning of the bowels or the large intestine. Okay, and so this is interesting to me because I'm already seeing the inflammation in the stomach, and now I'm seeing some inflammation in the appendix itself. Just left of this is another indication of probable indigestion and hyperacidity in the digestive process. So just left of this is the pancreas, right in this area. And the pancreas is the organ that secretes alkalizing enzymes through the pancreatic duct as your food is moving from the stomach into the small intestine. So if the pancreas is under functioning, you're going to have a higher level of acidity. You're not going to be digesting food very well overall. Okay, so a lot of inflammation in the pancreas and even some discoloration in this area. When you have discoloration, it is usually or can be one of two things from my perspective. And that is the production of enzymes by certain organs that are overproducing or underproducing. It's also indicated by taking prescription drugs or any kind of toxins that you've taken in through your lungs, you know, any kind of toxic drug can be showing up as discoloration in the eye. So a little discoloration, a little bit of inflammation in the pancreas. And overall, we did speak about this, and there is some indigestion that she is experiencing. So let us move on. This little area in here is the hip, and this is a little like a honeycomb lacuna. So there's 3 little enclosed openings in the iris fibers, and that is just a little grouping of lacuna in the hip. So that could be something, a weakness that she inherited, and she may or may not be feeling any kind of tension or pain in the hip. It's just an area that has potential for that. And let's see, this whole hip area in here. And the next thing I want to see is how the kidneys are doing. So this area, just medial to the thigh knee foot, as you can see over here, here's the kidney and the adrenal. So we have the kidney and the adrenal sitting right on top of that. You can see this pretty large lacuna, and it is a closed lacuna. When you have a closed lacuna, that indicates that the lymphatic system has closed off this area, that the body has closed off this area. So it's difficult for the circulatory system and the lymphatic system. So it's difficult for the blood to feed that area, and it's difficult for the lymphatic system to remove the waste from the cells in that area. This isn't, you know, super dark or menacing, but it does look like there is some potential weakness in the kidneys. All right, and next thing is this area in here is the uterus. This whole area in here is the female reproductive area. So there is some discoloration in here, and again, that could be due to prescription drug use, or it could be due to some kind of enzymatic activity in the body. I'm wondering, because it's right on the uterus, if it has anything to do with a history of birth control pills. And let us move on. So here we have the back. And it looks pretty good. There's a little bit of a lacuna in here, a little bit of darkening in here. The reason I'm looking at the back, because normally I'm focused on the organs, especially the organs of elimination and the glands. And the reason I'm interested in this area is because the skin ring is a lot more pronounced in this area. So when you have a skin ring that is more pronounced in a certain area, that usually indicates that the area inside of the skin ring is not functioning as well as it could be. It's either hypo-functioning or hyper-functioning. So you could have, you know, chronic, or you could have acute. All right, and this is definitely still in the back area. Now we're getting up, and this is something that caught my eye for sure. This is a little lacuna, or a larger size lacuna for her eye. In other eyes, this might be a small size lacuna. And we're seeing that in the bronchus area where the bronchioles are. So right in here, and also in the scapula region. So this over here, I'm going to go over to the little pictograph. This is the scapula, and then the bronchus is right in here, the bronchioles. All right. So moving along, I would like to make a note that there is something of interest in the thyroid gland. So when we look at thyroid and we see any kind of weakness in the thyroid, Dr. Morse says that it's rare that he sees something going on in the thyroid and not see a skin ring. So the two are definitely associated. The thyroid controls our metabolism and our ability to sweat and release toxins through sweating and through the skin. There are other connections. There are hormones that the thyroid produces that affect the health of the skin. So often when you see a thyroid, hyper or hypoactive state in the iris, you're going to be wondering, what the state of the skin is. Sometimes there's dry, flaky skin. Sometimes there's oily skin. But overall, the skin itself isn't removing toxins as well as it could be. Okay. And a little bit going on in the jaw in here, and then up in the nose area in here. And this is pretty close. Even, as I'm looking at the side chart, I'm also looking at my computer program, and they're definitely really close. But when you have a software or you have another chart that's more specific, it tells you in more detail. So I recommend using both, especially when you're learning. Okay, so I'm saying that, and my mouse just kind of like went to that little spot. There is a little bit in the sensory motor zone of the brain, and I'm not going to go into the different brain flares right now. I do have a description on my website about the different brain flares, which are essentially from the 11 to 1 o'clock. We can map the brain and its functions out by section. So a little bit going on in sensory motor, and then a little bit in the, let's see, like erogenous zones of the brain. So that, and then just like in the left eye, I'm going to be looking for how the pituitary and pineal are. So, because when I see it in one eye, generally I like to look for it in the other eye, and you don't even really have to look for it. You can just see a lot of inflammation, almost like a little lacuna in here that would be part of the pituitary, but it looks like it's on the inside of the bowel wall. So that's interesting. There's definitely pituitary and pineal. And like I mentioned in the first video, this is a person who was born with a wide open crown chakra and third eye chakra, and able to, at a young age, astral project, lucid dream, had a lot of capabilities. And at some point, these capabilities got shut down in many of us. So that results in the calcification and the hardening and the inflammation in those areas. And let's see. Yeah, I think I mentioned this in the first video. So you're just going to approach decalcifying the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, just like you would the thyroid gland or the adrenal gland. The thyroid gland builds up calcium just as often as the pineal and pituitary. So you're going to go for the alkaline diet, the fruits and vegetables, the fruits and greens, the fruits, berries, melons, and that is going to start to pull out the congestion, and the lymphatic system is going to start moving again, and the kidneys are going to start filtering again. So and of course meditation, from my perspective, there's not like a quick shot to decalcifying the pineal gland, which I know is a popular topic because we all want to have our sight and our vision, our psychic sight. And you will get it back when you go on a high vibration diet. You will. Okay, so moving on from there, just the whole entire brain, again, a little inflammation. And what is that center? So this is about language skills, the center here. Let me see. Acquired. My acquired intellectual language. And there are other ways of describing this zone. Mental speech, speech and audio learning. And interestingly enough, this zone does contain the pineal and pituitary glands. So speech, listening, and visual learning approaches are combined in this brain zone. All right, and again, if you want to learn more about the brain zones, I have a pretty good description of the brain zones on my site. All right, I think I'm ready to leave the brain. I'm going to just have to go before I see anything else. This is an interesting little transversal. So it's an iris fiber that is inflamed and it's going in an odd direction. So I'm interested in this because it sort of has this like whole territory in here. So for the most part, that is the ear, the neck, the shoulder, just that whole ear, neck, shoulder. We're probably getting into a little bit of mastoid process in this area, which we are. Okay, and that is, for the most part, just gonna sit back and see if I see anything else. Yeah, I think we're good. So I'm going to end this video here. If anyone who's watching has any questions or would like more information on iridology or just wants to say hi, I'm going to link my info in the description box. All right, thanks so much and hope to see you again soon.